should turn this on. Everyone always looks like they're in front of a firing squad when they're well, thank you so much for joining us. Writer-director Rose Trimboli, everyone. Lead actress in the role of Faith, Eloise Gordon. This movie is so, it just, even though it's a kind of a coming of age story, there's so much that's relatable to any person of all ages. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration? So in your director's statement, you talk a little bit about your own struggles with like OCD and that you wanted to tell a vampire story kind of using that lens. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah, so while I was writing this, I was going through a lot of like immersion therapy with my OCD treatment, and I kind of wanted to tell a story about how I saw myself, because I know there's a lot of like preconceived notions about OCD, especially with a lot of like the hand washing and cleanliness, but I always noticed that there was never kind of any talk around like the compulsive thoughts, and like, at least for me with my OCD, it like my past actions always came up, so I thought, you know, putting it into a movie would help me kind of like look out for it. And I also wanted to just tell an OCD story, and I thought a vampire was an easy way to do it, even though, you know, she's a vampire that goes out in the sun. I just wanted to play around with the archetype a little bit.
Can you talk a little bit about the rules in your vampire world?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of mess around with the rules a little bit, because with independent filmmaking, it is very hard to shoot at night on a very low budget. So I kind of threw out the rules and only really kept the vampires need blood to survive, vampires are strong, they can't really die naturally, and I just kind of stuck with those and like went with it, and was hoping that people would forgive me for having a vampire that goes out in the sun and doesn't burn.
Twilight kind of frames us all over that.
Yeah, sorry I didn't make you sparkle, Eloise.
She sparkles all on her own. Eloise, for playing this role, have you acted in horror movies before?
Yeah, I've done a few horrors. I did a short where I was also kind of the monster, but most of the time I'm, you know, the scream queen getting hunted in the woods. So it was cool to be able to not only play like a character, but also be the monster myself. And I think that's also what makes the movie relatable, is that she's not perfect and she doesn't think she's perfect, and she's grappling with like the guilt of everything she's done and that everything that's happening around her, and trying to keep control like with the compulsions and everything, but there's just moments where she can't, and what all those kind of leaks look like.
It makes her very human.
Yeah.
It seems like your character had been turned kind of recently. Is there a timeline that you had?
Yeah, we thought it was like within a few, maybe like a year or two.
Yeah.
So like fairly recently, where like that's why she's not really sure what's going on, or like exactly how to maintain herself in a way that's like exactly easy to control. But she still knows enough where she knows to keep herself isolated, keep blood in the fridge so that she doesn't have to be like going out in like hunger looking for anything.
Rose, with there's a lot in my head right now. I'm like trying to organize my thoughts. I'm sorry. There's a lot in the story about just forging these relationships, and I'm curious if the exploration of Faith's sexuality in terms of being like bisexual is important to the OCD element, or if it's just an element that makes the character a more fully fleshed out character, if it's just part of the story.
So I was going through a lot of, you know, like coming to terms with like who I am. You know what you are. But I wanted to kind of add what I was like going through, because I was raised in a very like Roman Catholic household, and that with OCD is like not mixed well, so everything bad I did, I thought I was going to hell, and like when I found out that I was bisexual, I was very nervous to kind of say anything, do anything like related to it, and I wanted to kind of explore it here. Yeah.
Did everyone get a chance to do the QR code? Are you doing it right now?
Bodies are in the way.
Oh. I'm gonna do that, and then Aaron, in just, if you can hear me up there, in just a minute, if you want to put it back onto the just regular Portland Horror title screen, that would be excellent. Everyone good? No? Okay, thanks. Sorry. You always try to design these things so there's not like a weird thing right in your eyes, and inevitably it ends up happening anyway. Can you talk about a little bit about the other characters in the film and kind of how they contribute to this whole journey?
So, Josie, I wanted to be kind of like a mirror image of Faith in a way, where she kind of thinks the same way as her and is isolated as her, and Faith was able to find, you know, friendship in her and a relationship, and just feel comfortable in her, getting comfortable with herself and all that fun stuff. As for the other characters, I wanted to kind of give Faith some other characters to play around with, and to kind of help build the fact that even though she wants to be isolated, she still craves connection. And that was another trope of the vampire I wanted to play with, because they're always isolated, up alone, and like Dracula's alone in his castle, and the Cullens, not to bring Twilight back, but the Cullens just keep to themselves. And I thought that, you know, adding more characters for Faith to kind of interact with would kind of show that, like, personally I think vampires are lonely and crave connection. And as much as they crave blood, and even if she wanted to stay away and isolate herself, she still craved those connections.
Yeah. And I think also with like the control aspect of it, like she's doing everything in her power to control these urges and compulsions, but like, as we know, life doesn't always let us have that type of control, and so she's still, like, she is still a person. She still, you know, finds things funny and, you know, finds beauty in things, and the people that are around her kind of bring that out. So then it adds this other battle of like, how do I exist and find joy while also maintaining that control and composure?
And I thought it was interesting at the end when Josie wants to be turned into a vampire and Faith obliges, but then everything kind of goes off the rails, and that last scene is so reminiscent of like The Graduate, where they're sitting in the car just kind of like, I don't know what to do now. Like that ending is, do you see that as what kind of ending do you feel like that is? A happy ending, a sad ending?
I mean,
just curious of your opinion.
Personally, I wanted to keep the ending like open and a little ambiguous. Like, are they going to be happy together? Is this a good idea? I was kind of hoping that the ending wouldn't be like happy or sad, more like just kind of an ending like, oh, Faith now has to deal with these issues with somebody else. She has to like care for somebody else. Somebody else is going to go through the same things as she did. And I guess the reason Josie wanted to be turned was because she was so isolated, like Faith, and she thought that she could get that, you know, familial relationship with Faith because, you know, again, in the vampire archetype, like, they are always like looking to like expand their family, make more vampires. So acting in that archetype was kind of what I was going for, and sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, I think that answered my question perfectly.
I'm much better behind the
It's
camera
okay.
than in front of it.
I would love to open this up to audience questions. I see a hand right in the middle.
Yeah, first very quick question and then maybe follow up. What year did the movie take place during?
So I wanted to keep the year ambiguous, but in the script it was supposed to take place in 2005.
Okay.
I can't really say why I picked 2005 other than ever since I was little, 2005 has always been a year that has stuck with me for some reason. But I didn't really want the use of cell phones because I thought that would add another layer that as a independent filmmaker I was not ready to deal with. So I wanted to keep it in a very specific time period or time ambiguous.
Was it then difficult finding prompts that kind of supported that? The television, the phone, just the key to the hotel, all those things are very subtle, but we've noticed it over time.
So
Those were all just
Yeah.
like in the hotel.
Yeah.
A bit dated.
Everywhere we filmed hadn't been, I tried to find places that looked like they hadn't been updated. The motel room thankfully had that clunky TV and the landline. But there was also some stuff that was very like 2010s that when we got in, I turned to my production designer and I was like, fix all of this in like 5 minutes, go.
Down in front with the tattoos.
So I really like how you approach dialogue. It, at a lot of moments, felt very real for me. In other moments, like utilitarian, like you have to move the pot a lot,
Yeah.
use names and stuff, but like excellent. What inspired your, like, how you approach dialogue, and then from an acting perspective, how did that feel versus your scream queen kind of roles?
Dialogue, I honestly just recorded conversations between me and my friends. I wrote down anything interesting that my friends would say, or that I sound egotistical, that I would say. And I just I also watched a lot of Buffy growing up, so any fast talking, sarcasm, dialogue comes from that. But I just kind of listened around me, listened to friends, and I've known Eloise for a very long time. So a lot of our conversations were kind of mixed in with that dialogue. So at least I would think it would be easy.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, Rose is a great writer. The dialogue wasn't changed. She got on set and was like, if you guys want to change anything, like go ahead, and no one changed a word because the dialogue itself was really strong, and I think as an actor that's kind of the dream because then you don't have to embellish everything and add like 10 more notches onto it. And I think also for the character, like the quietness of her and her trying to keep everything internal, it didn't need to be some big crazy performance, which is I think also what made the moments where she does have these like bursts of like either fear or joy a lot more fun to play with because it felt like they were like seeping through. Like every time she smiles, she's trying not to smile, but like can't help it because she's still just a person, you know?
You have your hand up first.
So at the ending scene, like with the box and stuff, how do you decide what to put in the box? It seems like she's overwhelmed the whole time with memories, so I would feel like she wouldn't want to keep any of that. So what was the decision behind that?
The decision behind that was I wanted her to be connected to her past in a little bit because it affects her so much that she should still be able to find joy in some of the darkness because it is still a part of her. Those are her actions. Those made her who she is. And in the box, I wanted to put stuff that could show and give a little backstory to I call them intrusive thought sequences, like those flashing images. I thought, adding the pictures in and having that little memory box would add some context to it. So that's mainly why I added it.
Awesome, thank you.
We have time for one more question, the orange.
What was really in the water bottles, and was it tasty or yucky?
It was all chocolate. It was all chocolate syrup that was dyed red. So it was very tasty, but I did drink a lot of it. And the very last thing that we shot with the blood that I had to be drinking was the shot of me licking it off the floor. And that was kind of my moment of like, maybe this doesn't taste as good anymore. I'm glad that I don't have to drink any more chocolate syrup for the week.
Yeah, actually, the actress who played Josie kept requesting that we didn't put any in her mouth because she didn't like the sweetness. And we had 2 types of blood, the mouth blood and then a blood that wouldn't stain anything. She kept requesting we, have put that in her mouth, and we kept having to tell her, no, that's dish of soap. Like,
that is
cannot
toxic.
have that in there.
Cannot.
But yeah, the blood was surprisingly everyone's least favorite part. And of course, I wanted more. So.
Always more.
Always more. Very much blood and guts. In the streaming edition, I think I introduced it as Get Ready for Some Vampire Sex, Blood, and Intrusive Thoughts.
I think that's a beautiful way to describe it.
All right, I think we need to wrap up so we can continue on to the next thing, but I want to thank both of you again for being here. I didn't know you were coming. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, most of my family lives in Portland, like my extended family, so I was like, I'm coming. I'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. And are you guys on the Portland Horror Discord community?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a Portland Horror Discord community. If you go to the bit.ly URL, bit.ly/PHFF Discord, you can log into there and chat with filmmakers like Rose and Eloise. And you can also, are you guys going to hang out for the after party tonight? Find them at the after party at Dots. We'll be going over there after the film's conclude here, and we'll be just getting some food and drinks over there.
Yeah. Come find us. Come chat.
Yeah. Thank you.